There's another one. I'm just admitting. I only see about 5 or 6 of you guys right now, but obviously we will keep the waiting room open as always. And these always seem to grow as the hour progresses. And I'm sure more people will be hopping in. But as many of you guys know, this is our DaaS sales workshop, which is really geared around everything to do with sales, sales processes, metrics that matter, understanding, how to set up your sales system, giving you guys all the resources. So specifically for our DaaS agencies who are resellers, which is probably about 75% of you from all the conversations I have. I know we do have about 25% of our users that are, just businesses or brands using the data for themselves. This call doesn't offer those people a lot of value because this is more about reselling the data, but happy to answer any questions around things there as well. So as I always do to kick these off, and Ed, I see you raised your hand already. I'm going to get to you here in just one moment. But that's kind of how I like to structure these guys for any of you other ones that are just, hopping on or one of your first DaaS sales workshops. I like to start with if anybody hopped onto this workshop with a specific sales question or something specific they want to cover, either raise your hand using the emoji like Ed did on the screen and I'll call on you momentarily, or just type a 1 in the chat if that's easier. You type a 1 in the chat, I will call on you and you get a chance to speak. So I like to start with a Q&A. Then I want to go through some curriculum resources and a bit of a lesson and a subject matter that I put together for today's workshop. And then also a Q&A at the end after the lesson to go over if everything was clear. So before I dive into, again, curriculum and everything like that, Ed, you were the first one. Please go ahead if you came with a specific question or something you want to address. The screen is yours.
Thanks, Ray. Question is about the white labeling, the branding. So it looks like I can set up the ability for a client to actually log in and then create their own custom audiences and their own pixel and basically all the things that I can do that I give them permission. And I was wondering if you had any thoughts on what's the best way to sell that, what's the best way to package it, and what kind of price tag might make sense. I first started thinking I'll sell the pixel, and then after talking with you, you suggested that make sure I really focus on the audiences. And so I've been working on that, and then I thought, well, shoot, why can't I package the whole thing up as this, giving them the ability to log in and see the whole thing for themselves and do it themselves? And I just wanted to get your thoughts and feedback and ideas and suggestions on that.
Sure, happy to run through that. So I'm gonna address this in 2 different parts. I know you started with the white label. I'm gonna go back to that. I want to start with selling audiences versus pixels, and then we'll talk about how we can incorporate that in kind of the white label thing, the benefits there, and how I might position that. But first off, if you guys remember, or if you guys have ever been through this, one thing I'm just going to share my screen, Ed, as I'm kind of giving a little bit of an explanation here and going over my thoughts and how I address and look at these. Number one, in our school community, right, we have the classroom section. Now, within the classroom section, for any of you guys reselling, and most of you guys have been through this, don't know if everybody has, but the agency win kit, one of them in particular, one of the modules under number 2, which I think is the most important, I always tell all of our resellers, for anybody that may not have been through this or know about this is probably the least amount of content or modules you need to consume to confidently go talk about and resell this in your marketplace. And one of these, under number 2, lesson 2, audience versus pixel, what I'm really going over on this lesson, and I'm going to cover right now live, but it's in here also for if you guys want to go back to it or recap, is I think it's very important to understand the difference between the audience and the pixel, who that's the right fit for. When's a good time to sell both or cross-sell or upsell? Or sometimes I might want to start with one and then upsell the other one 2 or 3 months down the road. And kind of what I mean by that, back to your question here, Ed, is I think one thing that's very, very important is when you're having the conversation, you really want to know which one to lead with. And what I mean by that is I'm speaking with a business owner that tells me they're getting most of their leads and close deals in through paid ads, paid marketing, email things, I'm going to want to go with more in-market audiences. Now, if they tell me that I do more of my business driving traffic right to my website and everybody opts in or converts and either buys or books via my website, I'm probably going to want to recommend the Pixel. If this business owner is more established and they're doing both of those, I'm driving or spending some pretty good money on ads, marketing, and I'm driving all that traffic to a particular website or landing page. That's the perfect ideal client, Ed, where you'd want to sell both, probably entertain the white label option, which I'll dive into. But number one, guys, what I'm saying here to Ed's question is we really need to assess what's going to get the quickest win and what's the lowest hanging fruit. So again, when I'm talking with a business that's talking more about paid media, their rising cost per lead and acquisition, their profitability getting very low, I'm going to want to lead with in-market audiences and highlight the benefits there. And guys, just for a little recap of what I would say to my prospects on that call is, hey, Ed, you had mentioned that, rising cost per lead and acquisition has been, going up steadily over the last couple of years. And as a byproduct, your ad profitability is dropping to the point where it's almost getting to the point where you're not as predictable that you put in a dollar, it's going to kick you out the back end. Is that safe to say? Yeah, Ray, those costs and that predictability certainly has changed a bit and is not as profitable as been in the past. Well, what if I could show you a way, Ed, where you don't have to change anything? Same budget you're currently spending on ads, same creative you're already popping, but I could get your cost per lead and acquisition to drop by about 25 to 40% almost overnight. Would that benefit your business? Well, yeah, right. If you could show me a way where I'm not changing much or anything and I can drop my cost, what does that look like? What do you mean exactly? So the difference is using my AudienceLab in-market intent first-party data in your ad campaigns for enhanced targeting, Ed. What I mean by that is AudienceLab data as opposed to standard Meta or Google or really any ad platform standard targeting. That's about the difference we see. Our data and our accuracy and our targeting is so much better than the standard meta targeting that your cost per lead and acquisition will drop anywhere from about 25 to 40% simply by using an enhanced targeted audience. Right now, what you may be doing, Ed, is going into Facebook, running some ad spend and ticking the box that says, let Facebook find my ideal audience. Now, Ed, Facebook doesn't explain this, but every time you do that, every new ad set, every new campaign, every new time that you're targeting a new audience or a different demographic, your ad budget, Facebook's taking a certain percent, usually somewhere between 20 and 40%, and putting it into a testing phase where they're trying to figure out your ideal audience, which means generally speaking, and maybe you've noticed this in the past, Ed, when you're launching new campaigns and new ad sets, it takes a month or two before you really get it dialed in, meaning those first couple months, you're likely getting a lower quality and quantity of prospects that you should be getting because Facebook's still testing, figuring it out, trying to find your ideal audience. And by using my audience, I go into a super graph tracking over 300 million users, approximately 1.9 trillion behaviors, and up to 60 billion URLs. Within that demographic, I am going to build your enhanced, dialed in, targeted audience by using intent features, by using search parameters, only people in your zip code geographically that you're looking for, only people within your budget, whether they're homeowners or nons. I can filter your target audience so much more enhanced than Facebook that what we're able to do is build you a pre-existing winning audience. We loop right into your ad manager. We run all of your ad spend to this audience rather than Facebook standard. You don't waste any time on testing. We already have a pre-existing winning audience and we totally eliminate and or circumvent Facebook's taking part of your budget to put it into a testing phase. So let me ask you, Ed, which one's a better way to go forward? Having an audience that you know is going to perform or waste some of your budget on Facebook while they try to find that audience for you? So guys, I went in a little more depth with answering that. I went through kind of a whole little back and forth role play.
That was awesome, Ray.
Thank you. I'm glad you got a benefit. What I'm always highlighting is the benefit for the user, right? Their benefit is lowered cost. I showed them a simple, direct way to do it. It made sense to them. It's very hard to say no to that offer now when we start to talk about pricing. They said, yes, I need that. They said that would make a difference in my campaigns. And then when I asked them at the end, that final tie down, hey, Ed, which one's a better one for you going forward? It's very hard to say, well, Ray, I want to do it the old crappy way that's costing me more money. Nobody's going to tell me that once I lay out those two options. So they are saying, in essence, Ed, I want your way of doing it. How do I get these audiences? And then we start to get into pricing and positioning it. So that's what I'm talking about with that guy. If that's his main thing and his main business model and acquisition, I'm going to keep it all around lowering those costs and in-market audiences. Of course, throughout that conversation, I'm going to elaborate and say, Ed, with that 5 or 7K or whatever your monthly budget is that you're spending on ads, once people opt in, where are you sending them? Do you send them into a funnel, a landing page? Do you send them to your specific website? Where are you sending that traffic? And now I get the answer to that. Okay, how many hits do we get to that website each month? And if that is the significant number, I'm probably going to pitch the Pixel and a combination right now. If he's not yet driving consistent traffic, my thoughts as a service and a data provider is cool. Let me start this guy, Ed, with the in-market audiences. Let's run some traffic for a couple months. Let me get his costs down, his profitability up. And as a byproduct, he's going to start sending more and more traffic to this page each month. So probably 2, 3, 4 months into our relationship together, that will be a good time to cross-sell or upsell the Pixel. So me, I'm always mapping that out from my first conversation. I'm assessing which one do I want to lead with? Is this a candidate for both products? Okay, if he's not, which one is the low-hanging fruit to get him the quick win? And then when do I see introducing the other one and how does that work? And on the flip side of the spectrum, I might speak with a business owner that's like, hey, Ray, we drive a lot of traffic through content, through organic marketing. We don't spend a lot on paid ads. We do some email marketing, but even that is mostly our warm opt-in list. We're not doing a lot of cold, but I do drive a lot of traffic to my website organically through my content. Every call to action brings them back to this specific website or landing page. With that person, I'm always going to lead with the Pixel. And then after a couple months, and I'm going to go through how I'm going to pitch that to them. But also, I want to tell you the long-term process I'm thinking of. And then I'm also going to think, cool. So if I start getting him some resolved identities and some quick wins with the Pixel, and he starts to make an extra 10, 20, 30 G's a month off this, that's a good time to say, hey, man, now out of these profits, don't you think it's a good time to start to put some money into paid advertising to have both your organic stream flowing? It's great that you get that every month, Ed, but also having some paid to diversify and have traffic coming in through multiple channels. Now we can do that on a profit rather than out of pocket with the money we're making off the SuperPixel. Does that make sense? And usually he's going to say, hell yeah, right? What you said first, the Pixel made sense. I've already made money with it. Now, if you think this tool makes sense and we're reinvesting in that out of profit rather than out of pocket, it would make a lot more sense, right? So I'm not sure what happened. I didn't mean to screen share. Okay. But yeah, so there's that. And then also, the way I'm going to kind of position the Pixel, what I've seen work best, we can go through this in a number of ways, and I'll walk through a couple what I see work best. But one of the best I've seen when we're really positioning the Pixel, and that's the main thing we're leading with in the conversation, is something like, hey, Ed, what if I could show you a new revenue stream within your business that you didn't even know existed? Number one, I can show you how to find it. Number two, I can open this revenue stream. And number three, I can get it converting to bring revenue into the business that currently that wouldn't be coming in otherwise. If I can show you how to do all that, would you be willing to split that revenue with me, say 70-30? Right? So that's one way we can go in and do this. And let me just tell you about the thought process from the business owner. All right, well, without Ed, I'm probably not going to find this revenue stream. I'm definitely not going to know how to actually make it come to life. And if I can't do those, there's no chance I can do the third thing he just said, monetizing it. So I can get 70% of a revenue stream I wouldn't have, or I can get 0% of a revenue stream I probably won't figure out on my own. Most people are much more likely and happy to do that 70-30 revenue split. And again, that's just one way to do it. Can you go higher and lower numbers? Can you always fluctuate? Yes, you can go in and price it, but I'm just saying that's a really intriguing business model opportunity or pitch from a business owner standpoint. Shoot, he's going to show me a revenue stream that already exists that I can't even find. It's going to take me no more work to do this, and he's going to show me quick wins, and I don't pay him until I make money. He just wants to split a percentage of the actual revenue that he creates. So there's no really skepticism or hesitancy or, hey, this guy's trying to scam me. None of that comes into their mind because this is all contingent on you producing a result that doesn't exist right now. So that's one way to do it, right? I could also just come in and say, hey, Ed, what if I could show you a quick way that we can take the traffic to people already going to your website and identify and reconvert them rather than keep trying to drive more cold traffic to this website? What I mean by that, Ed, let me ask you, who do you think is more likely to buy from you? Somebody who knows of your brand and visited your website in the last 30 days, or somebody in your next cold, outreach campaign? I agree. Probably the person that's visited your website and already knows about your brand. So why don't we do this? What I can do is put an identity resolution SuperPixel right onto that website, resolve the identity of your bounced visitors, and retarget them for some quick wins, low-hanging fruit, and quick revenue driven into the business. Let me explain how that works exactly, Ed. So you currently have this website with about 5,000 hits per month. You told me that your website conversion rate is 3%, which means out of 5,000 people, you get about 150 to opt in and either make a purchase or give you their information. Now, with that being said, Ed, the other 4,850 people that land on your website that don't opt in, that don't convert, do you know who they are? Their name, email, phone number, anything about them? Well, right now, I mean, if they don't opt in on my website or don't click to give me their information, I have no clue who's visiting my website. Totally, Ed. And that's kind of the old way of doing business. That's what I'm here talking about. There's some new technology out there called identity resolution. Okay. Ed, my tool in particular is called a SuperPixel. And here's how this works. This is just one piece of code I go and slap onto the existing header of your website that's already getting that traffic. Once it's on there, it's going to start firing. And very, very quickly, it's going to start to identify resolve the identity of your bounce visitors. Let's talk really quickly about what a resolved identity means. It means we're going to give you their first and last name, their email address, their phone number, their hashed email, which just another phrase for their retargeting. If we want to take that person and put them in a retargeting Meta or Google ad, we have their Shaw256 profile where we can run an ad and hit any major social media feed. So again, just for context here, let's do the math real quick, Ed, just to make sure I get everything right. I'm pretty good at this in my head, but I'm going to pull out my calculator and let's just make sure we get this right. And I just want to show you what we can expect. So 4,850 bounce visitors. When I slap my pixel on the website, the expected expectation that we see typically is about 30 to 60% of identities resolved. It can go higher, but I want to operate on absolute worst case scenario. So let's say I get you back 30% of your bounce visitors. That's about 1,450 people, Ed, each month that are already visiting your website. Then we send them a very little simple retargeting message, something along the lines of it could be an ad, could be an email, could be a combination. We would discuss whatever is best for your business. But very simply, we hit them with an ad. Hey, Ed, I saw you landed on my Raised Roofing website earlier this month. Hey, man, sorry to see you didn't opt in for our free newsletter and become a member of the Raised Roofing family. And we see you didn't book a call to meet with our sales team. Well, let me ask you, or let me say, since you're a loyal website visitor, Ed, and you visited the site within the last 30 days, we have a special promotion going on right now. If you are in the market and looking for a roof repair or replacement, and you book a call with my team through this link in the next 48 hours, I'm going to give you 15% off the entire quote of your job value just for being a loyal website visitor. So what I mean by this, Ed, is we have to think retargeting people that already know of your brand and visit your website and with a little discount or urgency to move forward today. I would like to think that would convert at least the same as your cold traffic to your website. Normally that's going to be higher, but let's say it still only converts at the 3% your website is. That's driving an extra 44 sales or customers into your funnel and into your page each month that are actually buyers or people that convert based on worst case scenario. I resolve the least amount of identities my pixel will do. We convert at the absolute bare minimum that your cold traffic currently converts, even worst case scenario. So Ed, if I could drive an extra 44 buyers to your website or into your funnel next month, would it make a difference in your business? Boom, there's my pixel pitch. And then from there, how to price it. Again, I like to do more performance based. And guys, one of the resources that I give away each week on this call, and well, now we do these every other week. Each session we do these workshops, and I will drop it here in the chat because I hadn't got to it yet. I was kind of answering a question, and I'm still going into it. A lengthy question, which is great, Ed. But one thing I kind of want to point out where we was, I'm going to go drop the link to this in the chat for everybody, for anybody that's new or hasn't seen this. But this is the DaaS seller resources for closing or reselling the data deals on new clients. Everything you need from building out your sales process, how I would do it if I were you, from your scripts, triage call script, calls, closing call or demo call script, pitch deck we give you guys. But more specifically to what I was just covering and why I was bringing this up right now, this pixel data and pixel pricing tutorial runs through, number one, the best way to really assess if it's going to be a home run, kind of just like I did with Ed right now in this example, the amount of hits, the conversion rate of his website, all that stuff, entering the numbers to really get a close guesstimate of how much revenue they're leaving on the table. I always want to assess first, and if it's not going to be a solid ROI, right, a home run for my end user, I probably don't want to pitch the pixel. So number one, this tutorial number 7 on my screen shows you the exact best process to go in to assess. And then at the back end of this tutorial, I go through the best ways of pricing, whether I want to sell it on straight retainer and the bare minimum I would charge for that, which I've always told you guys is $1,500. I wouldn't be selling a pixel and slapping on a website as a DaaS reseller for under $1,500 a month. Can you go cheaper? Yes. I personally wouldn't, and I don't think you have to. I think the demand and the ROI is typically there at that price point. I also walked through a couple of different compensation models where you take a certain percentage of the revenue, certain percentage of each sale. There's also the hybrid model where, hey, I normally charge a $1,500 retainer, Ed, but for you, what I want to do is do half of that. I'm going to knock 50% off my retainer and only charge you $750 a month, and then I want a little percentage of the revenue. So you'll do a mix where you have a base plus compensation in terms of the results and the revenue you drive into the business. Personally, as a service provider, I like to have some skin in the game. And 9 out of 10 times, my performance deals pay me much more per month than that standard $1,500 retainer pixel pricing. So I don't recommend doing that. But again, if your business model and you have a lot of pixels and say, I just want to go sell a bunch of these, I would sell them at no less than $1,500 a month on a straight retainer. But again, going through number 7 on this document, which right now, guys, I am going to drop the link right in the chat to this document. That is in the chat for anybody that doesn't have it right here in the Zoom chat. That link dropped at 3:21 Eastern time is to this document that you're looking at my screen. Number 7, specifically anybody that's thinking of selling pixels or wants to get more comfortable with it. Number 7 on the screen will be very, very helpful around that. So I gave a bit of a lengthy explanation as to the difference between the pixel and the audiences, how I would pitch them, how I really walk through the unique selling proposition and the benefit to their client to make it damn near impossible to say no to me, right? Now, the basis of your question was, what's the difference between the white label and when should I sell that and how should I price that? And I think this one, there's no straight answer I can give you that's going to be universally true for every user. My thing is the way I would do this as a DaaS reseller is I would be using the white label dashboard and those capabilities and be selling it that way to more established brands that already have a project manager, that already knows how to go in and run ad campaigns. Those are the people that are going to be able to go in and build a list that actually delivers results. Think if you give an entry level or a novice type of digital marketer or somebody that has very little marketing acumen or advertising acumen, and you just create them a white label account, Ed, you're like, here, dive in and go create your own audience. Do you really think they're going to go in there and know how to build the best dialed in audience that's going to perform in their campaigns? And if I believe the answer to that question to be no, I probably don't want to set up my user that way. So my thing here is for less established, more novice and or entry level, less established businesses, I'm probably not going to sell the white label dashboard. I'm probably going to sell, it's not even really a done for you service, Ed, because the fulfillment is so easy on pulling lists for a client once you get good at using the platform. But my point is I would just sell them list kind of a la carte and charge them per list or per record or however I'm pricing it. Now, my more established business owners, again, that have an internal marketing and advertising team, that have project managers, that's where I'm going to be able to pitch the white label. And yes, I'm going to charge a little more for it that way. So it's very hard to say because normally with the lower established and the ones where you are going to create the audiences for them, most of those type of businesses aren't buying more than an audience or 2 a month. So I would say when you're selling the white label, it's really going to be contingent with pricing upon volume. How many lists do you think this client's going to use per month? And then I would just discount it slightly every tier. So let's say I charge $1,500 per month for 2 lists. Then if they want 4 lists, I'll take off 10% and only charge $2,850 instead of $3K, which it would be normally. So it's really hard to say because you're going to set up each count that you do create white label access, Ed, for that client based around certain parameters. You're going to make sure that they can only extract 4 audiences and use 1 pixel. And then you have to kind of price that as to how much of data is that out of your monthly plan, and then how much do you want the markup for margins. So there's no direct formula I can give you, but I would say there's a little more of a markup you can have on that because it's more of a they can just log in and do it themselves and they're not relying on you to fulfill.
Ray, that was the most comprehensive answer that I've ever heard. You are amazing. I love it. I'm looking forward to watching the video and taking notes.
Okay, great. Well, and just so everybody knows, by the end of the business day within our school community, if you go to the little channels it lets you pick from and go into the sales channel, this replay will be posted with the full transcript down below as well. So you can kind of copy and paste or take out certain things that I said. But the full video with, I don't know if it lets me get the full transcript in there because YouTube has a limit on how many characters, but I get as much of it as I can. And I can also send you the direct hard transcript for anybody that needs it. But yeah, this replay will be there as well.
Where in school did you say?
So yeah, let me share a screen just so everybody knows because it is a little confusing when I just talk about it. So I'll share a screen and show you right where those are. So let's go back into just the main one as if I just logged in. Now at the top, it gives you these few categories, but down here are different channels. So these channels right in this toolbar, announcements, office hours, wins and case studies, you just click more, click on the one that says sales. All my replays are in here. So I haven't done a workshop in 14 days, but look, 14 days ago, right on cue, there's the last workshop. And then 2 weeks before, you'll see another one and so on and so forth. So today's will be right in this channel before the end of the day.
Cool, thanks.
You might see it also when you log into the main one, but the main one, everybody sets it up different for what they see. Are you seeing the most recent posts? Are you seeing the most relevant, the ones with the most engagement? So the way to be sure to find it is just click on the sales channel and it'll be one of the first ones there every time.
Perfect.
It's like any other social media type of platform in terms of like it creates an algorithm. It decides based on your settings. Does it show you again newest, most recent, most frequent, the one with most engagement? And not everybody goes and sets those parameters. So I noticed even when I log into school, I'm like, why didn't I see this post from 5 days ago? Because I didn't have my settings set up right. And that's on me. But now what I kind of want to dive into, guys, and I'm going to leave time for a Q&A at the end of the session. Again, I know some of you guys hopped in and I admitted you as I was answering Ed's question and I went in depth and down a few different segments there. But kind of what I had outlined was four main things to go over. I'm going to see as much as I can get into here in the next 30 minutes or so, and I'm still going to leave time for a Q&A at the end. So whether somebody came with sales questions to this, workshop, I will get to that for you, or whether you have any questions on what I'm about to go over in today's lesson. But two separate things that somewhat tie into each other that are going to go into what I want to cover today is setting up your sales process and or processes and how to really address and highlight the metrics that matter. I refer to as MTM. There's a lot of metrics and moving parts in businesses. Which are the ones that are really the levers we're pulling that make a difference in the business? Which are the ones that are non-negotiable? And if I'm not tracking and managing that data or not having that data, I should say, can kind of crumble my whole process. And which are the ones that I need to collect the data from to optimize my process and make it more efficient and or effective. So I want to go into that. As a byproduct of that, another aspect of what I might dive into is kind of going back to the basics. Believe it or not, it's still something that we all do, but I don't really talk about as much as the newer or the cutting edge or the newest thing that I've done. But when I go do anything, everything goes back to the basics. And what I mean by that is if anybody was on my workshop 2 weeks ago, you had known, and I went through that AudienceLab was just launching a new Pixel division that we didn't have in terms of a sales team. A brand new offer had just launched the day before. I think I had shared with you guys that we booked 34 calls on day one for that offer without spending any money in ads to it, and we've already booked hundreds since. Well, since building out that process, I actually jump back in and I am the team leader running and managing and overseeing this Pixel team. So within that, I've had to build out new processes, resources. I've had to hire new talent, like everything. And within just the last 2 weeks, everything's already kind of dialed in, solidified, and in place, and the process is moving. So I kind of want to walk you through how I went back to the basics to do that. That didn't just come from I didn't just reach up in midair and have all my sales processes and the talent I needed. And I didn't do anything glamorous or anything that anybody can't do. I just really went back to the basics. And I kind of just touched on it, kind of all one thing if we get into that, but the process and building out and kind of recruiting the talent for a new team. But I think that's the last point of emphasis I'm really going to dive into because that is probably least relevant to a majority of you guys on this call. I know a lot of our DaaS agency clients sell for themselves, have one sales rep, and have no immediate need or desire to build a full sales team. So I'm only going to go into that last part and really like building out the team and the talent if the time allows for or if people think there's value there. But I also don't like to teach things where a lot of you guys aren't at in the business. It's like, why I teach you something that might be relevant 6 months or a year down the road? Let's cover it when it's relevant. So saying all that, let's start with let me start with the metrics that matter, and then we'll go back to some of the basics in the process. So for metrics that matter, what I'm going to bring up, man, I have a lot of tabs open. So what I'm going to bring up in terms of metrics that matter is an example of a tracker sheet that I've used for sales over and over in a number of different offers. And as you see highlighted at the bottom of the screen where I'm kind of hovering my mouse, this is an example sheet, and then I'm going to show you a real live sample of it. But I just want to show you the example, and for what I'm explaining, please focus on line 10 on my screen, or June. So I just want to show you the key metrics that we track that are most important and how it really helps me make subtle little tweaks and decisions within my sales process to make it more effective. What do I mean by more effective? Higher show rates, higher close rates, things like that, right? So we are tracking line 10, column C. Number one, how many appointments got booked into this rep's calendar in that month? June, this rep had 277 booked. How many actually showed up on those calls? 148. How many canceled prior to the call? How many were considered no-show? How many did we actually make an offer to? How many did we close out of those offers made? How much cash was collected? How much in our business? And I want to tell you guys really quickly the difference between column J and K, cash collected and revenue generated. Cash collected is how much got collected on that day and already got collected into the team. Revenue generated is the MRR that's already in the platform being billed for next month. So in most of our programs, and most of you guys on an AudienceLab package, you probably pay a monthly membership or subscription fee. So we collect X amount on the date of the closing, and then we have that much MRR already on the books for the next month. The cash collected should always be even to or slightly higher. And why it's slightly higher is there could be a convenience fee. There could be a one-time setup fee, onboarding fees. So cash collected can be a little higher than revenue generated. Then it shows me the show percentage on this rep's calendar was 53%. That is not ideal. For me, standard KPI in a good sales team is about 68% show rates. Do I like them and get them higher? Yes, but that's kind of where I'm satisfied. I'm always looking to improve and drive it up. Anytime I see a month or two where it's below that, I got to go back in and reassess something in my process, which we're going to dive into. Now, the offer percentage being 24%. Let me tell you how that comes about. So that is a division of column G being divided into column D, meaning I can only make offers to people that actually show on the call. The offer percentage isn't out of the amount of total bookings, because I can't make offers to people that show. So to get that 24%, that's just 36 divided by that 148 number. And then we see the close percentage for this rep. Now, we can track that in a couple different ways. I think the best way and the most generic way is the way this one did. I'm tracking 17 closes out of 148 total bookings, or 11%. But you could also go further and really advanced metrics more so in sales is what's my close percentage on the actual offer made. What I mean by that is if my rep didn't make an offer, usually there's a reason that prospect was disqualified. Whatever, could have been financially, could not be the best fit. Maybe they could use, something else other than data right now. Maybe they need a media buyer. Maybe they need a sales team, an appointment setter. Maybe we're not the solution right now. So I track the enhanced, I track the overall generic close rate, but then I also track the close rate off of offers made, because those are the real times that your reps should have an actual shot to close a deal. So when I actually get the right guy on their calendar and through their system, and he can actually make the offer, what percentage does my offer now close at? And then lastly, the last two columns that it's kind of showing is cash per booking and revenue per booking. That means for every appointment I put onto my sales team's calendar, for this rep specifically, that I put onto his calendar, how much cash does he bring into my business? So if I know for me as a business owner, it cost me $80 to get an appointment on my rep's calendar, this number always has to be higher than $80, or this rep is actually costing me money and not making me money. We always have to figure out if ourselves, as well as our team members in the business, are they an asset or a liability? Once somebody becomes a liability too long, especially in a sales team where it's commission-based, they probably don't stay on the team too long, right? I mean, I could have a guy that has a down month or two that's been with me, that's produced, and I will eat his numbers for a month or two while he tries to get things right. But any rep, I don't care if they're proven or not, 2 straight months of not hitting metrics or costing me more money per booking than I am spending to put on your calendar, that becomes a liability to me as a business owner, no longer an asset. And sometimes we have to make those hard decisions. I've had to make way too many of them, but the data never lies and the metrics never lie. The only way they lie if we don't see them or we're not tracking them properly, right? Not knowing the metrics is the biggest deception of a business owner. And I guarantee you, and I'm not putting anybody down because I'm still not perfect at this, but I just know from all the conversations I have, I would say more so outside of my clients. I think you guys are better at this than the average business owner I talk to just randomly that I don't work with. But what I've found is about 63% of business owners I've spoken with, and I tracked about 10,000 total conversations in the last 5 years, about 63% do not know the main metrics in their business. They don't know what the metrics that matter are, and if they know what they are, they don't know what they are. Do you know what I mean? Like they don't actually know the final number. So they might say, Ray, I know these are the metrics that matter. Okay, great. It's close percentage, show percentage, call volume, and revenue per booking. Now, what are those numbers, Ed? Well, I know what they are, but I don't actually have my numbers in front of me, right? So that can also, that's what I mean. So number one, they got to know what those 4 or 5 things are, and then they actually have to know the metrics behind them, right? So this is just a good little overview of what we used and the main metrics that we still track. Now, I use a little more modern stuff. We use dashboards and automations and simple forms. They're a little cleaner and a little neater and a little less time consuming for our reps than the tracking sheet. But this is more comprehensive and thorough for me to walk through. So now I'm going to give you an example of one of my top performing reps. And let me take a month that was good, but I by no means want to take his best. So I don't know. Let me go with April. So I'm going to go with line 8 on the spreadsheet, April, and we'll see that month. Adrian had 259 possible calls we booked into his calendar as AudienceLab from our paid ads and our marketing efforts. I'm sorry, he had the 259 available prospects. 155 actually booked. 82 of those showed. 12 canceled, 69 were labeled as no-shows. He made 32 offers, closed 23 deals. Now, I certainly love that number. Now, I'm not happy with the 32 offers out of 155 booked. That tells me that we need to improve our pre-qualifying process and getting the right people in front of Adrian. But from his offer to actual close rate, that is phenomenal. That's what I love to see. And then we can look at his metrics from there. 29,000 produced that month in cash collected, 26 in future MRR already on the books for, in this case, that would have been May of that year since we're looking at April. Slot utilization just really means how much of his calendar was actually booked up with appointments. So about 60%. I like to have my guys at closer to an 80% rate there. Show percentage, again, very low at that time. Offer percentage, decent. Close percentage, although it seems a little low due to the offers made, that was actually really, really good. And the numbers I'm always looking at in terms of profitability, Adrian, again, one of my top producers and certainly one of my most profitable reps in terms of this metric, but my cost doesn't really change that much. Throughout the year, we've had times where it go up and down, but pretty standard for AudienceLab. We know even on our bad advertising months when stuff's getting out of whack, when we're dialing and we're popping out new creative, when we're still kind of going off the old creative and hitting a little ad fatigue. Worst case scenario, it costs us about $120 to get an appointment on a calendar. We're usually closer to the $80 metric, sometimes below or above, but 80 is kind of our standard company internal KPI. We know it gets up to 120 at times. So that's kind of where we draw our metrics from. Between 80 and 120, let's just split it right down the middle and say $100. So it cost me $100 to put every appointment on this rep's calendar. I also pay him a 20% commission. So now I got to take $100. Now I got to say it cost me about 120 as a business owner because every closed deal, right, I got to pay about 20%. And I just tack that on top to be safe. It's actually a little lower than that. But just to be safe, I can safely say if Adrian can close me deals at a cash per booking and a revenue per booking at over $120, he's going to be an asset to my company and bring in money. I don't see 1 month on these metrics where he's below $120. Most of my guys aren't. I mean, we've had certain months, like Mark had one there in January where he was below 120. And I think it was a part-time month for him. But generally speaking, we rarely see that from our reps, especially seasoned reps. So that's a lot about the main metrics, what I'm looking for, percentages. But again, those main metrics, and let's just talk about it, they go down to all the basics we probably already talk about. Availability, how many leads did I actually bring in my pipeline? Out of those leads, column C, how many actually booked? Out of those that booked, how many showed? Now, tracking, canceling, and no-shows, I think, again, a lot of people combine that as one. It's just people that didn't show up early on. As you get more advanced, have more reps and more moving parts, you want to track stuff a little more thoroughly. As a 1 or 2 person team, I might not even separate those two. Look, I always want to know how many booked, how many showed, how many no showed and or canceled, whether we combine that in one or two, doesn't really matter. How many offers were made and the close. So those are the 5 metrics that matter that I should always be tracking, even if I'm a little individual sales guy selling for myself and I'm a one-man show. I have one rep. If I have one sales rep that's taking a majority of calls and I'm the business owner, ask yourself this right now. Do you know those metrics every day? Do you know how many calls were on his calendar? Do you know how many of those showed up? Do you know how many offers were made? Do you know how many closed deals were made? As a business owner, you should have eyeballs at the end of that on every day. And if he either has a simple little sheet or form to fill out, once he clicks enter, it should loop to automatically. I mean, the way my team works, it automatically goes to upper management's visibility where we can see that. However it is, I mean, you could have a spreadsheet that every time they update it, you already have access to the main. So you just see it when it updates, whatever. But anyway, it's a good example of some of the metrics that matter. If anybody wants an example and a sample of this to kind of make their own copy, just drop the term tracker down in the comments here and I'll make sure to get it over to you. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about that kind of ties hand in hand with the metrics that matter and kind of ties back into the next thing I said, we're going back to the basics, is the sales process. And this is something that I am very meticulous about in terms of how I set these up. Matter of fact, as I mentioned, just launching a brand new offer, building out a new team, bringing in talent. Our first 2 weeks on this offer, we saw very, very poor show rates. And again, brand new offer, no optimization, no nothing. Within 2 weeks, that's already drastically changed and we've doubled the show rate and it's still going up and I'm still working on it. But it all came back to me really dialing in this process. And how I always start, many of you guys that have been on some of these workshops, I've covered this. 1 or 2 of my videos probably cover this, but I like to go back through the micro commitment process, which I still use in every sales team and process I built out. This goes back to 2020 up till 2 weeks ago when I built out this team. And I'm going to show you what the new process looks like and the resources and everything. But this was the basics and the foundation I went through. So number one, let's look at different sales processes. Here's the usual or standard method that's been around specifically in the online space for a number of years now. Is it also working in the offline space? Yes, but we're gonna keep this more toward digital marketing and digital sales for the obvious reasons. We run digital marketing companies, technology companies, data providers, right? So typically somebody has to place an ad in front of me, some content, an email, whatever, something to get my attention, step one. Then they either take me to some form fill or some type of a triage conversation to a closing call. Now, though, that's the usual and the standard and the basic method. And as this slide kind of says, when I go through that method and something doesn't work out, they don't show up, they don't close, they're not the right fit, all that stuff, I don't have enough data and metrics within that process. I just don't have enough data and feedback, I should say, within that process to make educated optimizations to improve this process. So I started asking myself, was it the call or the messaging? Did I push too hard or not hard enough? Was this prospect even a good fit? It's just way too many variables and I can't pinpoint it back to which part of the process went wrong or where I need to dial it in. So we built out years ago and introduced what we like to call the PDOC's micro commitment 6-step sales process that again, I am still using in this offer I just built out to a T. But number one doesn't change. Same thing as in the last process. We have to create engagement, and we all might do that in different ways. Some of us might do it in multiple ways. Some might just do it through paid media, and that's where we rely. Some of us might do it solely through organic content creation, email marketing, YouTube videos, etc. Right? So all kinds of different ways. But number one, we got to get somebody's engagement and get in front of them. And then when we do, and just so you guys know, the old process, steps 1, 2, and 3. In this process, those are steps 1, 3, and 6. So the new ones being introduced that aren't in the old process are number 2, 4, and 5 on my screen, just to make that very clear for everybody. But number 2 might be the most important, and that's assigning a new frame. That's kind of taking the symptom or surface level problem that most of your prospects have, isolating it down to the root or the real problem, and then saying, hey, you thought this was the problem. In actuality, this is the problem. Does that make sense? And let me give you a great example. For the example I ran through on Ed's question with somebody running ad spend, where I think in-market audiences would be a good fit and helping them overcome that. I might say, hey man, you keep your your cost per acquisition and cost per to acquire a new lead keep on rising. As a byproduct of that, your profitability is dropping. And you probably think the main solution is, man, I probably need to ramp up my budget, or man, my creative isn't dialed in enough and I got to keep pumping out new creative. But what if I told you that neither of those was the real problem? The real problem on why you're getting rising costs and lower profitability is your targeting. Meta isn't giving you as good of data and as many parameters to target through. So what I can do is give you a pre-existing in-market intent-driven first-party data audience that we loop right into your ad campaigns, no change of budget, no change of creative, and automatically start to lower those costs per lead and acquisition. Does that make sense? So now I've just assigned a new frame. They came into seeing my ad, my content, thinking their main problem with rising cost was not knowing how to budget right, or needing to raise their budget or lower their budget, whatever, budgetary questions, or they're reinvesting in new creative and they're always pumping out new creative. Well, guys, I have some creative that's been running 12, 14 months. If the creative's still converting, all I need to do is keep finding new audiences for it. Actually, changing up creative sometimes is more expensive in two folds. Number one, the creation of the content, but number two, sometimes your better creative, you're replacing better creative with less effective creative. I don't want to say which one's better, which one's more or less effective. So you're replacing effective creative with less effective, thinking that you need to change the creative. What if we just show you a new audience to put that creative in front of that's already converting well? So I've overcome a couple common misconceptions, or things he didn't understand, to get him to say, shit, what this guy just said is right. It's probably not my creative or my budget. It probably really is my targeting. How do I find out more? Which takes them into step 3. So that's what I mean by assigning a new frame. This is what you think the real problem. This is what I think is the real problem, Ed. Does that make sense? And if they say yes at the end to themselves, yeah, what Ed said totally makes sense, then they're bought into the rest of the process. Now, after assigning the new frame, I like to take them to step 3, which I prefer the triage call here. Now, there's one of two things we should be doing here: a triage call or a form fill. A form fill works better in more automated, more tech businesses. The more you are more personable, more service related, more high ticket, the more I would go to a triage call in an actual person here. You got to think, this is my pre-qualifying opportunity. So just gathering stuff from a form, 1, there's no human or personal connection. 2, a lot of people lie much easier through a form than they do face-to-face to somebody on a call. So all kinds of things can happen. You need to assess what's right for your business. I always recommend, and I'm going to go through this process as we do it, I use a triage call here. And as I've covered on so many of these calls, a triage call has 2 main objectives. 2 main things. If you don't know what they are, or you're not doing them on your triage calls are probably for SHIT, if you know what I'm saying, because you're not doing the 2 primary objectives. What are those? Rather than going back and forth with a Q&A just for time's sake, number 1 is to pre-qualify and make sure I have the right person. So through the first part of the triage call, it should really be kind of getting a fit for what type of business, where they're at, where they want to be, what have been some of those roadblocks. So then we can go ahead and, number 1, assess if our product, our solution, our offer is a prime fit to help them overcome that problem or achieve said result. And then number 2, it really helps us kind of, I don't want to do this on the triage call, but what we're already figuring out is, what am I going to prescribe when we get toward the more solution part of the call? And you don't want to go through too much of that on a triage call. I don't want to get too complicated. But number 1, assessing and make sure it's a good fit. It's somebody that suffers from the problem you have. They're within the demographic that you serve. They are as established or where they should be to actually benefit from your product. I think that's one of the biggest disqualifiers with our DaaS clients, is a lot of you guys have tried to or have closed deals with a less established company that wasn't going to be successful with the data, no matter how good of a list you provide, because they don't know how to reactivate it. They're not yet spending on ads. They don't even have their own email autoresponder set up. There's all these reasons. So we want to pre-qualify and make sure people have the proper foundations in place. So if they are to become a client and I'm to become their data provider, they're actually going to get results with the data, which means they're going to stay on. They're going to come back and buy more. They're going to give you testimonials and maybe referrals. All that stuff happens. But if we don't assess the thing right and we're pitching or bringing in wrong people, everything falls apart from there. So that's number 1. The second objective of a triage call is to get a soft yes in terms of a financial commitment. And what I mean by that is, at the end of a triage call, throughout the process, I'm going to be setting them for a second call, which in this process, or these steps, is number 6. That's the closing call, or the second call in the process. But in the meantime, I'm going to say something along the lines of, hey, Ed, when you have your call with my senior advisor, Danny, Thursday at 4:30 p.m., I just want to make sure that number one, you guys are already connected and you hit the ground running. So I'm going to dive in. Actually, I don't want to get too complex. I don't want to go into 4 and 5 yet. I'll just go through the soft yes. This might come after I do, like, it all makes sense in a minute. Soft yes is simply this. Hey, Ed, you're going to be meeting with Danny Friday, 4 p.m. at the time you selected. Hey, man, when you guys get on that call, barring everything makes sense, and you see a clear path, Ed, to lowering your cost per lead and acquisition and increasing the profitability of your campaigns, is there any reason you wouldn't move forward and invest in that opportunity at that time? That's a soft yes in terms of financial pre-qualifier. And I very specifically ask, is there any reason you wouldn't move forward? Because I want to pull out objections right now. They might say, I can't move forward because I don't spend money without my spouse, my business partner. I got to run through some more resources. I want some case studies. Whatever they're going to give you as an objection or a brush off at the end on the close call, I want to try to suss out now and get all that information. And I want them to think about it. The other way a lot of people word that, and the way I avoid is, hey, Ed, if everything makes sense when you meet with Danny, would you be willing to move forward? And a lot of times they don't think about it and they just nod or say yes. I want to ask them, and I very specifically asked, would there be any reason you wouldn't move forward? I'm trying to really get them to think about it and be like, well, it might be budget, might be business partner, might be spouse. Good. Let me find that out now so I can get both people on the call for the close call rather than have somebody show up to the close call and then give my closer the objection that now we have to go to a third call, right? That could have been eliminated or alleviated if I pre-qualified right. So getting the soft yes. If somebody tells me flat out, no, Ray, I'm not willing to make an investment, I'm going to tell them flat out, no, Bob, I'm not willing to put you on my advisor's calendar, because people that aren't willing to make an investment into our software and our product aren't really worth my guy's time. But I'm happy to give you some more free resources. And when you think you are ready to invest, or this might be a solution, we'll be happy to talk to you then. There's nothing wrong with doing that, guys. I feel like too many people just want to get people to the close call. And even if they don't have the budget or they tell you flat out they're not going to invest, we still book them in. I preferably, I mean, I personally don't do that. And I wouldn't do that, preferably, or wouldn't be my preference. So part of what I'm also doing on the triage call as I'm setting for the close is number one, assessing if they're a good fit. Once I do that, I go into recommending and prescribing the actual set to get on the second call. Once they're like, okay, cool, I'd love to see all the details and get on the call with your advisor, I say a couple things. I go through the soft yes, but I also do a homework and an alignment phase as I'm closing out the triage. So steps 4 and 5, they may do them or they get sent to them after step 3, but they all happen within step 3, and they're actually all within the triage call script that is right here on this document I've already shared with you guys. So I dropped this in the chat here earlier in the session, and I give it to you guys every week. Number 4 is the triage call framework, and you will see as you go through that framework exactly what I'm talking about here, where we assign the alignment phase, the homework, the new frame, all the things that are in here. Well, the new frame was before the triage, but that script. So what I mean by alignment and homework is this is how I do it. Okay, Ed, so you're set to meet with my closer, Danny, Thursday at 4 o'clock. Hey, this is what I'm going to do, Ed. Since we're connected on Facebook Messenger, I'm actually going to loop you, myself, and Danny in a quick little group chat for 2 purposes, man. Number one, that way you guys are already connected and have an open chain of communication in case one of you guys is, running 5 minutes late to a prior call going over. In case there's an emergency and something comes up with your kid at school, at least you guys are already connected, number one. Number two, I can rehash and fill in Danny on everything we talked about on this call here today, Ed. That way you guys can really hit the ground running when you meet Thursday at 4 p.m. and you guys don't have to rehash that whole call and that information. So I'm going to fill them in on what we spoke about, make sure we're on the same page, and make sure you guys are connected. Does that sound fair? Yeah, Ray, that's totally cool. I'm cool with that. Cool. In addition to that, that was the alignment phase. Sorry, guys. I did these 2 out of order. Whether you do 4 and 5, it doesn't really matter which one they fall into. But number 1 is the alignment phase. That's what I just did. I'll explain that. Number 2, I also assigned some homework here. So, Ed, I'm glad you're booked. I'm glad we had the time to go over. So based on everything we talked about today, and your number 1 problem being that rising cost, lower profitability, and not knowing how to target the right audience, I'm going to send you over a quick little 5-minute video on exactly how we've helped business owners like you target their ideal audience and the results you should expect to see. If I send you over that quick little 5-minute video, can you make a verbal promise to go through that and watch that before your call with Danny Thursday at 4 p.m.? Yes, Ray, I can. Great. So what I've done there is assign homework with a very specific video tutorial lesson overview that's specific to him and his problem, right? The alignment phase, this one really goes above and beyond. And this one really helped show rates when I've mixed this into offers. Now, guys, Really, step 5 is more specific when you have a multiple rep process. You don't need an alignment phase if the same rep is doing the triage call and the closing call. I'm not going to say, hey, Ed, I'm going to loop you into a group messenger chat with myself because we're meeting again on Friday, right? I'm not going to do that. So keep that in mind. That as you start to build out a team and you have separate specialists and back-end closers or setters and advisors, or however you do that, the setter or the specialist should be mixing in the alignment and the homework as he transfers the call to a closer. That lets, number one, the prospect know you paid attention. Number two, this is going above and beyond in the sales process. This is one of the ways you can stand out, right? I always hear about people talking about, I got to improve my customer journey, my customer experience. That's great. I'm not saying don't focus on that. But very few business owners ever focus on, how do I stand out in the sales process before they ever pull out their credit card, before they ever pay me a buck? And that's almost more impressive. Somebody's like, oh my God, this guy introduced me to somebody, rehashed my whole call, got everything dialed in, listened to all my details, and I'm already connected with the guy I'm speaking with, so I don't just have to hop on the call cold like we'd never spoken before. All those things come into play, and I could add more and more into that. Now, what normally happens when I create these messenger threads as a setter, as a specialist, the closer will also chime in a couple hours after this conversation starts. Hey, Ed, glad you enjoyed your call with Ray yesterday. I'm looking forward to, and I see you on my calendar for 4 p.m. Hey, Ray told me he sent you over a resource. Please just confirm you watch that before we meet with our call. I'm looking forward to meeting with you tomorrow at 4 p.m., Ed. So now Danny chimes in and just says, hey, man, everything's cool, and kind of reconfirms that he understands the process. He knows that there's a video sent. He's just reconfirming that it gets watched. The more content they consume and the more little micro commitments that they go through in this process, the higher chance of showing up and closing when we get to the end. So when we've done this whole process right and we get to the close call, the heavy lifting is almost done for the closer. He can really just hop on the call and say, based on what you spoke about with Ray on Wednesday and what you saw in the video, let me ask you just to start off the call, Ed, do you feel like this product and our data is a solution and it can help you? And they're going to start right off the call with, yes, I believe your product can help me. I mean, imagine if your sales process started off with a quick kickoff question where they're already saying, yes, I can use your stuff, right? That's number one. Or you can kick it off with something a little lighter, like, hey, Ed, I know you met with Ray and you went through the video. Hey, what's the number one way that you plan on using this data and how do you see it serving your business best? Get them talking to what they're already thinking and brainstorming. That's going to help us really kind of, again, I talk about prescribe or recommend the best suggestions and help us really. I always like to say, when I get to a pitch, guys, I customize that pitch based on that prospect, meaning I might be selling the same data, the same package, the same price point, but I'm pitching it and talking about it 8 different ways on 8 different calls. Meaning this first guy, I might really focus on in-market audience and driving down his costs. On the next closing deal, I might be focused more on the identity resolution and the, starting a new revenue stream in the business. The next guy might be an agency where I'm really positioning DaaS as how to stand out, how to have a leg up from your competition, how to have another line item to sell, how to add in some higher profit margins. So my whole process, I'm assessing, then I get to the end, I'm picking out what's number one. What's number one that's going to give this guy the biggest incentive to want to sign up today? Is that how to stand out? Is that how to lower costs? Is that how to I already know that, and I'm going to customize my pitch all around what's going to solve problem number one for that guy. A lot of business owners don't care so much if we can solve problem 3, 4, 5 on their list. It's, is this guy solving problem number 1 and 2 in my business? And do I see a clear path to an ROI or the benefit outcome result I'm looking for? So this process is really, really good, been very, very effective. And what I'm going to do, because we only have a few minutes left, I'm not going to dive into the next part of the lesson. I'll kind of continue that into next week's. Let me go check the chat here. I know I just covered a lot, guys, and I always say it's kind of a blessing and a curse, but I'm a fast talker, yes. So anything that I was covering on this call that you either have a question about or that you want me to explain in more depth, you can either just type a 1 in the chat and I will call on you. I see 4 or 5 comments for that tracker. So rather than just send it to each of you guys individually, I'm hoping you're all still on here. I'm going to go back. Just make sure when you guys get it, you read this first page and you follow the instructions, or else once you get to wanting to implement this, it won't automatically change all the values the way that it will. So just follow the instructions on the first page, but I'm going to go grab this. I'm going to make this available to anyone. I think I have a different copy that I've already made available to anybody, but doesn't matter. My team is not currently using this one anyways. And let me go drop this in the chat. If there's anybody not still on the call that I see your comment, I'm going to try to go through these here and DM it to anybody else. So let me just check that real quick. Forgive me for being late. Are you sharing the sheet with us? Yes, I just did. You put in tracker, Ed. We had two Eds. We had Chris. And now Ed Middlebrooks. Feel free to unmute and ask a question. And while you're doing that, I'm just going to go back through and see Chris is still on here. Both Eds are still on here. Cool. It looks like everybody that commented for the tracker is still on here. So guys, if you go look into the chat bubble here on Zoom at the 3:58 p.m., that spreadsheet link I just made for everybody. You guys all have access to that tracker now, and I'm going to have to save some of my resources and lessons for next time. Sorry, Ed, go ahead.
That's okay. Ray, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, audio's clear, buddy.
Cool. Hey, a quick question for you. I have had a couple of realtors and a few other potentials, one of which we did an enrichment list for. And when I popped in that enrichment, it was for 120 people, 66 matches came back all over the country. And they were supposed to be here in Florida. He was using another service, comparing it to ours, and the data that I got from AudienceLab was completely wildly inaccurate. And I'm wondering, how do you manage some of that with clients? I mean, I know that if I get an intent list, I can synchronize that up to Facebook, and I'm going to get results because I'm running ads, right? But how are we looking at what the actual accuracy is that we're getting out of AudienceLab? And what do I say to clients? I haven't gotten any clients because every time I give them a little snippet of the data, they're like, this isn't right. And when I pull some data from my own stuff, I can look through the list and I can clearly see that it's not accurate. It's not right.
Number one, you're having this happen every time through all the tools, or are you just talking about through the enrichment feature?
It's enrichment and it's intent. I mean, so I'm starting this AI-based MSP. And I'm looking for some MSP clients, my first set of clients. And as I'm pulling it, I'm getting people from freaking Liberty Mutual. I'm getting them from Microsoft. I'm like, these companies are not looking for managed service
providers. That doesn't sound right. Sounds like
it's
something's
not
going
right
on.
at all.
Well, let me try to answer your question about how we deal with this internally. Number one is normally through your guys' feedback, through users' feedback. When we hear there's a problem like this one, this was a great example. I go take it back to my tech and my dev team, and then they dive into the back end of the platform and see what's happening. They may even go in and pull up the account from the person that said this and go look at that and say, oh shit, he's right. Only 66 came back out of 120 something, and they're all spread out when there should have been a Florida audience or whatever. And then they can go find where the loop is with our tracking and the data and the syncing in the back end. So I would say we honestly make the most improvements through mistakes and through errors that you guys make aware to us. We bring to our tech and dev team, and they go reverse engineer what happened.
Okay. I was thinking more along the lines of, is there a way to activate the data that you just find that, or I guess, is there a way to search for the data that gives better processes or that sort of thing? Because everything you just taught is fantastic. But if I can't get the right person onto the call, then none of that matters.
I agree with you 100%. If you can't get the right person, none of it does matter. Yeah, there are better ways to do that. It's just really not what I do day in and day out in my area of expertise. Those are the guys on my data strategy workshops that can walk you through that. If you can hop on that one tomorrow, ask that same question, I guarantee you'll get a lot better help than I can do, just because I've been very honest with anybody watching this call, specifically you, Ed, since you asked the question, but I'm a very transparent and unfiltered person. My role in the company has evolved as we've grown so much in the last 2 years. Guys, 2 years ago, I was in my back end building audiences daily. I probably log into my user interface once a month nowadays. It's just my role has evolved. We used to have 12 employees. Now we have 31. Just so much has changed. So now I have 5 guys. I pay a full-time salary to be in there doing that. I want you to ask those guys, because my information on those questions is now kind of 2 years dated, just because that's where my time is best spent in the company. A couple of years ago, I was an audience builder. That's just, we have too many people that are too good, and that's not where my time is best spent in my business anymore.
Fair enough. I was just in the school community. I saw you guys were on right now, so I clicked the button. So forgive me for being late.
I always appreciate it. No. I always appreciate it, and I try to answer any questions. But again, anything outside of my expertise, if I have a better person on my team to help you, go talk to him rather than, get a watered down answer from me.
Yeah, fair enough.
100%. All right, guys. Well, this was a great workshop. Thank you very much. As I mentioned earlier, I have the replay in the school community, in the sales channel before the end of the day. And whatever I gave away for resources, I will also link in the video that replay. So that tracker, the spreadsheet I give away, or I'm sorry, the document with the reseller resources, I'll have all that linked in the replay for you all too, but that'll be uploaded by end of day. Feel free to DM me in the meantime with any sales questions or anything I can help you with. And we will be back on this same session 2 weeks from today. Thanks, everybody.